What is going on, y'all? Welcome back to 8 Cubes. I'm KM Best, he's Lambie Series. We talk about the most important topics in Marvel Snap, and we try to get through them as fast as possible so your information download can be complete. We're going to start with Diamondback, the new card releasing in Spotlight Caches this week. It is going to be a 3/3 with an ongoing ability that says that each card at this location that is afflicted with negative power is afflicted further by -2 power. Those, of course, apply only to your opponent's cards, which is a very powerful card at baseline. Looks like a 3/11 if you're able to afflict an entire location. What do you think about this card, Lambie?
I think this guy is extremely powerful. I mean, it goes in a very obvious deck, right? The one that we've been playing for a while already, the whole Malekith anti-venom affliction deck. But why I say that it's a very powerful card, even though it only kind of goes in one place, is because it scales the power level of that deck like so much. So what this card does is basically when you play Hazmat, you have like you said, a 3/11, right? After you play a Hazmat. And obviously it's just a very huge I mean, for a 3 mana investment, it's going to be a really powerful card. And also, I want to say one thing, which is Malekith just got a really, really, really strong target. Because the thing about Malekith is that you want to be concealing cards that are. It doesn't really matter when they show up on the board, right? As long as they at the end of the game they do something. This card is ongoing, so as long as by the end of the game it's there, it will do something. So can you imagine, like, if you play a Hazmat and this thing is concealed under the Malekith, they will never know, and then at the end of the game it flips. Like this kind of stuff helps you gain 8 cubes. Like not trying to say like just because it's the name of our podcast, but like this kind of cards that literally will give you 8 cubes. So I'm very excited to see how this one will go in the affliction deck.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue, if this card has any issue, it's the same sort of issue that other previous cards in this season have had, like Thaddeus Ross. Although I think this card is just at baseline stronger. The issue is, like, is it good enough to find a spot in the deck? Is it strong enough that you really want to be playing it? And I will say, I've had a lot of struggles with 3 and 5 cost cards in this deck before. It's much easier to be a 2 cost card in this deck than it is to be a 3 cost card in this deck. And I think that is worth noting. I think a lot of that is like how energy efficiency works, but it does really matter, I think.
Yeah, just want to add one last thing, which is I feel because your point makes a lot of sense, right? Like it's very competitive, like when you actually even get to physically play this card. This card feels like, because I keep going back to the whole Malekith example. I feel like if you pull this with Malekith, you're in such a winning position. But I guess if you don't, there are times you just don't have time to play it. But I guess it's fine, right? The deck itself is also just a powerful deck in itself already.
It also sort of pushes the deck even more towards being a Scorpion Cassandra Nova deck, because now,
Yes.
not just Ajax, you have this as a additional thing that needs you to get afflicts on the board in order to not be terrible. So, like, even a couple of afflicts, this is going to be like a reasonably sized body. And so that is going to be really relevant as well. But there is sort of an elephant in the room here. Talk me through your thoughts on how the metagame is going to look, given that Luke Cage shuts this deck down entirely.
Yeah, I mean, this card just straight up gets hard countered by one card, right? And that one card is ever present in the meta right now, which is okay. Honestly, I think this is a good thing because I feel like without Luke Cage, this deck will just it could potentially be like top deck for sure without the whole Luke Cage thing. But obviously, Luke Cage is in the game, and I think that's one of the reasons why they are allowed to print something like this.
Yeah. I think there are 2 major weaknesses that the deck as a whole has. The first is a general lack of 2 and 3 drops that are able to contest Iron Patriot lanes. In terms of 2 drops you actually want to play on 2, it's basically just Iron Patriot and Scorpion, and those are actually cards that you don't necessarily want to be pulling off of Malekith, so there is some tension there, right? And so you have those, and then you have 3 drops, Red Guardian and Cassandra Nova, but they're sort of time limited, right? You don't want to be playing Cassandra Nova late, right? That's a thing that's really bad. Red Guardian got worse because of all the Sam Wilsons running around. And so there's just generally a little bit of tension between the early and late game in the deck that didn't previously exist. And this is not a card that's going to win an Iron Patriot lane, and I honestly kind of wonder if that's just enough to make it bad. So another card came out this week, and it's Redwing, and I think people are kind of low on Redwing. Like, I'll give all the caveats here, right? Like, this is a card that is kind of gimmicky. It's kind of dependent on the metagame around it. Redwing is only ever going to be good when playing the Infinaut is good. And I know that sounds a little bit ridiculous because it's like, oh, it's a 620, it's always going to be good. That's not actually true because it's a 620 that goes in one lane. So you're playing 20 power. Your max output on turn 7 is usually the Infinaut, or turn 6 is usually with 7 energy, the Infinaut plus an Ebony Maw. When that's good, the deck is good, right? That's kind of what you're trying to do. When that's not good, the deck is 100% unplayable. And we've been in metagames where that's not good. Like, if you're playing against discard, they can just outscale you. If you're playing against old move bounce, they can just outscale you. But as is, this is able to be in an actual deck, which is a big step up from the other cards that were released this month. I actually think the deck is quite good. Husky Puppies played it up to rank 3. I gained like 70 SP with it. It's just solid, the Blink deck at this point.
Yeah, I actually agree with the point where you say that like this kind of decks, like if the meta is just not suited for it because the point ceiling of the meta is generally too high, then it will just fade into non-existence. But currently now, I feel like being able to do the Ebony Maw infinite thing is enough, to win lanes. So yeah, and the thing is, the deck is relatively consistent as well at doing what it's supposed to do. So I think this deck. Like, it makes sense now, but I guess personally I'm a bit sad because it landed a bit lower than I expected. I feel like Redwing in general, like on the previous one we talked about it potentially being like a Dracula discard card, potentially dumping this card in more mid-range shells so you don't have to spend mana to dump your whole hand, that kind of thing. I guess it was just too much effort to be relevant in that sense. So a little bit lower on it than I expected it to be.
It ended up being a combo card, which is basically exactly what I expected it to be. Like, I will say, this is basically exactly what I thought it would be, but I did expect more Dracula stuff, but it turns out that instead of playing Dracula, you just play Blink, because Blink has more points on it than Dracula, and doesn't get Red Guardian, right? Yeah. So it's like, instead of doing your Dracula cheat, you do your Blink cheat, and that's what ended up working with the card instead. And that's super viable. There's just been a lot of Blink in the metagame right now. We are in a metagame where like big 6-drops, and I don't mean like the normal big 6-drops like Magneto or whatever. I mean like Gore and the Infinite are gonna win lanes. Like, if you're getting into the 20s, a 6-drop is gonna win a lane. And I think that is relevant. Like, it's not always like that, but it's definitely like that right now. Moving on to the 3 cards in the Sanctum Showdown Portal Pack. For a brief overview of Sanctum Showdown, it is the new game mode that will be starting on Tuesday. In that game mode, you play games and collect charms, I believe is the currency that it is called. 1,200 charms will get you a pull on a portal pack. The portal pack contains one of these 3 cards. If you have one of the cards already, it will not contain that card. So if you pull on the portal pack 3 times, 3,600 charms, you will be able to get all 3 of these cards. You are very unlikely to be able to do that free to play, but if you keep winning, you will technically have unlimited earning potential. And in addition, there are some Twitch drops we're going to talk about a little bit later. The first card is Laufey, a 4/5 with an on-reveal ability that steals 1 power from every card at this location, both yours and your opponent's. What do you think, Lambie?
I mean, the funny thing about this card is the gold standard for 4-drops is it's like what 4/6, 4/7 right now, right? So this card is very interesting because this doesn't feel like a 4-cost. It feels like something you don't play on turn 4. It feels like something you play on turn 5 or 6, right? Because you actually need like stuff there first for this to actually have its maximum potential. So it's very weird because I like the effect. I like the fact that at the end of the day it could easily be like a 4/9 or something, but you can't really play this on turn 4 onto an empty location. You can't just like put it there. It has to be played in like a location with stuff already, and that also gives it a bit more predictability as a card. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is a bad card. I'm actually very interested in this card because at the end of the day, we just talked about like above some affliction strategies, and this definitely does be in line with that as well.
A lot of people have pegged this as this is the best card of all of them. Right, like this is the one you're pulling for. But I don't think so either, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
There is stiff competition at the 4-drop slot in the Afflict deck. Is this card better than Malekith? Is this card better than Anti-Venom? No. Is this card better than Man-Thing? It's not better than any of those cards. And like, it seems good and fine and playable, and maybe it ends up being like a generically playable card. Maybe it's just like a card that people play, so it's like your 4-cost Spider-Woman or whatever. Like, maybe that's just awesome, right? Like, the numbers on it are really busted, right? Like, this is a card where if you play it in your opponent's lane, it is a 4/9 that afflicts them -4 if they have a full lane. That's awesome. That's a 4/13's worth of value. Like, that's a really good card. Downside, A, Luke Cage exists. B, are you really playing 4/4-drops in your Afflict deck at this point? That's so scary to me. Like, it might be better than Man-Thing. I don't know that it will be, and Man-Thing is a much more guaranteed win against some of the smaller decks in the metagame right now. I don't know that it's going to replace Man-Thing, and if it doesn't replace Man-Thing, it has to be a generic good 4-drop. And you talk about like 4/6, 4/7, like, I don't think that's true. Galacta's like a 412, 415. Doom 2099's in the same range. This guy peaks at 413, and that's good. Don't get me wrong.
But that's best case scenario, right?
Right. Like, I do think it's like a massive upgrade over Spider-Woman, but nobody plays Spider-Woman. I also think that
Exactly.
4 is a really good cost for an effect like this. Like, this is exactly what the deck is really good at being a 4s plus 2 deck. That's what the deck is best at. But I do have some doubts about the longevity of this card, so unless it ends up being like just generic awesome Galacta style stat stick, which to be clear, entirely possible. Like, it is totally in that Ares range where it's like, if this is sort of like Ares without the condition in terms of the numbers you're getting out of it a lot of the time. So I can totally see this being like the third best generic stat stick 4. But it's going to be a little worse than some of the focused cards in the specific Afflict deck.
I mean, I'm just looking at this card and I was thinking about Diamondback again. Like, Diamondback kind of just curves into this one, sort of, right? Like, it's just like you can go like a 3-4 and play this. I mean, obviously, it's way worse than doing the Malekith anti-venom things, but like, can you imagine like getting either the Diamondback or the Laufey for free off the anti-venom, and then it just all becomes a lot of point burst on turn 6, So I wouldn't rule this Laufey card out for sure right now, but I do think it's a bit weaker than other 4s that are already in the deck.
Yeah, I think if it has a chance of succeeding, I think it's outside of the Afflict shell. Next up is Gorgon, a 2/3 with an ongoing ability that says that your opponent's cards cost 1 more if they were not in their deck, basically. Every created card costs 1 more. So Thanos Stones, Arishem cards. You hate Arishem, you can play this, but it's probably like the 15th most good tech card against Arishem. Like, just play Cassandra Nova. Like, just play Cassandra Nova. Just play Darkhawk. You don't have to worry about this. It's probably pretty good, but how many people are actually going to get this into their deck? What do you think?
So this card feels like it came out about 6 months late, that kind of thing. Because like a while back, we had lots of Thanos, lots of Arishem, lots of like created, randomly generated stuff and all that kind of thing. The cool thing about this card is it's good that the card exists. Like they printed this card for it to sit in your card binder. I mean, I'm using like a physical example, for it to sit in your card binder until the time is right. So I mean, like that, I feel like you should just get the card, because if the meta makes this card relevant, this will be one of the very good cards for those kind of strategies to counter like all these random generation or like cards that don't start in your opponent's deck. But my point is, right now that's not the meta. But I do think this kind of card it's just good that it is printed and exists for maybe the future, whatever the future might be. If it is relevant, then it will be then.
Yeah, I think this is sort of the low roll by a lot here, where
for now,
yes,
for the current meta, it's a low roll. Yeah,
like this is a card where you're not going to be upset to own it, but you might not find occasion to play it a lot. And
not now anyway.
Yeah, like it'll go in and out, right? Like we talked about, sometimes stuff is meta dependent. Like Redwing is good right now, but it might not always be good. This card is bad right now, but it might not always be bad. It's definitely going to be the kind of thing where you're like, man, I'm really glad I don't have to spend 3,000 tokens on this if it ever is good, because it's just not going to feel good to buy a card like this. It never feels good to buy a tech card, especially one that's like so limited in scope. So this is definitely a card that people should be happy they're getting mostly for free, hopefully. And that is just sort of where I'm at with it. Of course, Gorgon also is a generally relevant card in not just Arishem matchups, but like, I'll tell you what this card does. I think this card puts Thanos in a dumpster. Like, Thanos can never be good again. I think it's over. I think it's actually just straight up over for Thanos, because if Thanos is ever good again, this is so much more devastating against Thanos than anything else ever could be. This is a nightmare.
Yo, that last comment needs to be a tweet, man. It's gonna get such insane engagement. Like, can you imagine saying something like Thanos will never be good again because
I
of Gorgon?
Genuinely think that.
No, I will 100% agree, because the moment Thanos becomes broken, you just put this in your deck and it becomes unable to be played.
Yeah, it's just right? It is in the dumpster, dude. It is getting it is unbelievably dead. And I don't mean like dead. Wow. Like, I think people talk about like unplayable or whatever, but like what I mean is it can never be the best deck again. It can. Thanos will never be the best deck in Marvel Snap again. Clip me and send it to me in 6 months when that's not true.
I think it really does make sense. This one card just like completely destroys the Thanos early game, right? Which is essentially why you play
Yeah,
Thanos to
like the
begin
whole
with.
point of Thanos is I play stones to discount my Mockingbird and get wide with Blue Marvel. You play this card, they stop playing stones. It's over.
Yeah.
I said in the Laufey thing that I don't think he's necessarily the best. I think, I was going to say Uncle Ben was. Now I'm backing off of it because I'm a huge coward. I think Laufey might still be the best, but I think Uncle Ben is getting severely underrated. And I was surprised to hear you agree with me about the Laufey stuff. What do you see in Uncle Ben?
So what I see in this card, firstly, is a very, very sad card because the law is correct. Where when Uncle Ben dies, Spider-Man comes
Yeah,
to
with
take
great
revenge in his
power
place.
comes great
Comes
responsibility.
great responsibility. Also, the Spider-Man that spawns has its effect, which is really good. But like anyway, I feel like this card, the idea you put into my head was perfect, right? Whereby this is like a Sarah card, like because in Sarah decks you want to play Killmonger, or like basically it's a Killmonger card, right? So you play this card, you Killmonger, and then like you spawn a 2/4 after you Killmonger, and then it's just like it's an upgrade from the Uncle Ben, right? So like it's the one drop that you can play in a Killmonger deck. Um, honestly, I think the card is okay. It's really meta dependent, right? Like when there's a Killmonger deck that's relevant, then yes, you can play this card. But when there's no relevant Killmonger deck, are you really gonna play this in Destroy? I find it very hard to believe. Well, I guess Destroy is a Killmonger deck, but like you're not gonna put this in Destroy, just to get Carnage to eat it. At least I don't think so.
Yeah, like, okay. Here's my argument, my pitch for Uncle Ben. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, there is massive pressure because of Iron Patriot existing to be able to contest lanes early. Massive.
Okay.
One of the things that Killmonger decks cannot do, because Killmonger himself is a 3/3, and because it precludes you playing a lot of 1-drops, is be good at contesting Iron Patriot lanes. The one exception to
Mm,
this is, of course, Mill, which is excellent at contesting Iron Patriot lanes because it leans into the Killmonger stuff with being a Hood Demon deck, being a Death deck, and of course the giant 3-drops that it plays. That's the one exception, the one Killmonger deck that actually can be an Iron Patriot contester and play its own Iron Patriot. This is a card that it's not going to be like, you're not going to win an Iron Patriot lane with a 1/2, but it ain't going to hurt. Like, you were previously unable to have a card at this energy cost because it would just straight up die when you played Killmonger. It'd be bad value. So, like, there are decks that had to choose between Hydra Bob and Killmonger, and they often choose Hydra Bob. Now you have this, who's like halfway Hydra Bob and works with Killmonger. And I think that stuff actually kind of matters. And I think this is a card that is being legitimately underrated. I think if I had to say, like, rank these, I would say Laufey is one still, but like I think it's very close between
yeah.
Laufey and Uncle Ben. And Gorgon is, while probably a bad card right now, definitely not a card you should be upset to own.
Honestly, after hearing your ranking, after our discussion, I want to put Gorgon as number one because it destroys Thanos. Like it can decimate an archetype. No, I mean it can decimate an archetype potentially if the archetype becomes good. And in the future, if they print like cards that make random generation stuff good again, this card just like stops it in its tracks to a certain extent as well. So I feel like Gorgons, okay, this is a very like scary thing to say in Marvel Snap because we'll never know. But like and we've said it before, like especially if cards like Grandmaster, we said like future potential is gonna be great, that kind of thing, right? I want to say like a Gorgon's future potential could be great, but obviously don't quote me on that.
I think it's the other way around. I think what they're gonna do. This is what they should do. They should, like, now
Mm-hmm.
that Gorgon is out, they should be like, all right, it's time to buff Thanos. They should just like they should
All
just
right,
be
so we're gonna
like,
see.
yes, like that. Now that like this is one of the things that I don't think they do enough is like when they have a safety valve for something, they don't push it enough. They've been doing a lot of that recently where it's like, we have all these safety valves for ongoing, let's push ongoing. I think that's really smart, right? Like there's a lot of different ways to deal with that. I think they should do that with Thanos once Gorgon comes out. Like Gorgon is coming out, almost everyone will have a shot at him for free. And they should buff Thanos. They should be like, yeah, we're gonna make Thanos like really strong because now if you opponent plays Gorgon on 2, you just like die. Like you just lose the game.
I do think I cannot really think of any buffs to Thanos that will make it ever beat Gorgon. It has to be in
Yeah.
the range of like something can cost 0, like the stones can somehow cost 0, which is a scary thought. But yeah.
Thanos having to play Mobius and Black Swan to get it through the Gorgon.
That's too much effort.
OTA on Thursday. Do you have any like specific desires for the OTA? Because I have 3. and they're not going to be popular.
Let's hear yours.
Okay. Everyone got mad when all these cards got nerfed, and I think they need to get nerfed again. I want to hit Scream. I want to hit Surtur. I want to hit Doom 2099. I'm sick of it. Like, I'm sick of it. I'm so sick of this crap. I probably want to hit Sam Wilson too, so but no one's mad at him.
Basically, your nerf wish list is essentially saying you want to just change the meta, right? Because if you hit those 3 again, I think the meta will actually change.
I don't know. It didn't last time. like the amount of comments I got that were like, "When you Surtur is dead now," and it's like still insane. Like, I got so many Scream is like these 2 out of those 3 cards. Every time they got nerfed, the majority of my comments thought they were dead. And they're like still insane. Scream is actually better now. Like the Scream change, losing a point of power in exchange for getting two energy Spider-Man, that was a buff, guys. We gotta be real about that. That is a buff. And then you have Surtur, who is like, I kind of hate Surtur. I think he is the worst kind of season pass card because he is not a recognizable character, literally just a guy. He was in 10 minutes of Thor Ragnarok. Nobody knows who he is outside of that. They only know him from the "you can't kill me, I know but he can" meme. That's it. And then he is just in the game as just literally a pile of stats. He is nothing other than a pile of stats, the world's most boring pile of stats, but he's a pile of stats that you can't actually nerf reasonably, because if you take away the fact that he can trigger a Scar, then he's suddenly way, way worse. And it's like, why would you put yourselves in this situation? Why would you lock this card into being the only way to make Scar 0 cost and then be like, oh God, what do we do about it? Like, I feel like they put themselves in a situation where this card exists as a like role that should not be filled. There should not be a card that makes Scar 0. There shouldn't be a 311 in this game. It just shouldn't be that.
Actually, so I 100% disagree with that, actually.
Really?
I think it's fine. Yeah, I think it's actually fine to have a way to make your Scar cost 0. It's just that I think... Okay, so I 100% disagree that that you shouldn't have a 0 cost Scar, because I want to play with 0 cost cards, and I think that's a fun and powerful mechanic. But I think Surtur does it too easily. Yeah, that's my pitch. I feel like you can keep Surtur the way it is to enable a Scar, but I'm assuming your nerfs involve. Wait, does your nerf involve not the card not being able to go to more than 10 power?
Yes,
that's too harsh.
Not like no.
I was just gonna increase the cost of Surtur.
I mean, that does the same thing, right? But like, whatever it is, I do not think that you should be able to do 3, 4, 5 free Scar. I just don't think you should be able to do that unless, and like we talked about, like, I don't know if you've seen the card Star Brand. It's a 3/10 that gives your opponent 3 power at the other locations. That's fine. You're paying a cost. The thing with Scar, or the thing with Surtur, is you're not paying a cost. You're just not. You're not paying any cost. It is just a 311. That's what it is. The card says, I am a 311. And that's it. Like, you're just getting it for free, for like nothing. And it's just like, that shouldn't exist. There should be downside attached. We have Swordmaster, who's a 3/7 with downside. There should be downside attached. So either attach some downside or make him stop being able to do this.
I mean, it's a 311 that does its work in one particular deck. So that's also a downside in itself, right? Like, it's arguable.
I get that, but the point is that people play those decks. Like people talk about that stuff like it's a downside, right? It's like, yeah, but also that's the only context we will ever experience the card in. Sorry.
It's true.
I wanted to take a moment because I've been pretty down on Sanctum Showdown and Second Dinner's handling of it, and say straight up, I apologize. I was wrong. They just announced Twitch drops that are going to give us 1,000 charms, which is almost enough for one of those new cards on its own. Twitch drops 1,000 charms for 6 hours, running for, I think, 2 weeks during the Sanctum Showdown event. Insanely generous, insanely, like, I said that I would apologize to Second Dinner if you could reasonably get all 3 of those cards free to play. And I think those Twitch drops allow that to happen. I think we are now in the range of, if you are winning at like a 55% clip, because then you should be able to get all 3 of those cards free to play. And I think that is a hugely important thing for Second Dinner that, frankly, I don't think they're taking enough of a victory lap on. they have never given away cards in Twitch drops. This is effectively giving away 80% of a card.
Yeah, normally they just give the variant, right? Like my unplayable Punisher variant. But anyway, so I agree. I agree that like I think basically you have like what they give you 1,000, one card costs like 1,002.
Yeah.
How difficult is it to get 200 more? Not really, right? I'm assuming.
They
It's not gonna be that
said
difficult.
that if you used all of the free entries to the game mode and had a 50% win rate, they expected you to get 2 cards, which is 2,400 over the course of the week. Over the course of the 2 weeks.
Okay, so you just need to not suck.
Yes.
And you can get...
But yes.
Okay.
Like, it's literally just like if you're above 50, the farther above 50% win rate you get, if you get these Twitch drops, you should be able to get all 3 cards free to play. It's awesome.
Nice.
And like, they're doing Twitch drops into Twitch drops. Obviously, this benefits me as I'm a streamer, but like, that's insane. Is like, that is like a genuine, these Twitch drops for me, like, saved the mode. That's genuinely how I feel.
Yeah, and I just want to mention a thing about Marvel Snap Twitch drops. Like it's been falling off a little bit for a while, right? Like the hype for Twitch drops has been dropping a bit because of the quality of the drops as well. I think the last time, I think this is probably the best one already
Ever.
because they give actual cards, right? I think the last time the hype was that crazy was the way back when they did the first one with the Devil Dino for the PC client thing. I think that was the last time the hype was that big, right? And even then it was just variant. Now they actually give you a card sort of. So W.
It's the best Twitch drops they've ever done, and they like I haven't seen enough people praising them for this. This is nuts. Last up, just a word on the meta. A dynamic that's been really prominent for me is just how many of these good cards decks are like composed of season passes. And I guess I wanted to sort of float this one to you and to the audience more generally. When you see decks that are mostly season passes, do you think of them as more expensive than decks that are mostly Series 5 or less expensive? Because like I'm always stuck on this. When I see decks that are like season pass cards, it's like, oh, okay, those are the budget cards. Like, because like I come from Magic where every deck costs money. That's just like how it works, right? And so like spending $10 on a card is budget. That's good, right? Like that's like a good thing. And so what's weird to me in Marvel Snap is like it feels like the perception is the exact opposite way, where it's like those are the whale cards because they're the ones you can't get without spending money. I'm a free to play. I don't actually have Sam Wilson this month because I can only get that if I spend $10. Never mind the fact that $10 is better value. They're just never going to spend money on the game. And I think that's just a really interesting dynamic that I am sort of trying to parse because I uploaded a video with a deck that was like 6 season pass drops. It's like kind of pay to win, but it's also like if you just bought all the season passes, like that's the best value you can get in this game. And I'm just so used to expecting to have to spend money to play a card game competitively because that's just like how card games work.
Yeah, I think you literally said it. Like the last point you said it. Like it really depends whether you expect to spend money to play card games. And personally, because I cannot really speak for everyone else, right? So I can speak for myself as well. I'm someone that expected to spend money playing the game. You know, like I expected to spend money on my games. You know, when I play a game or I buy a new game, I will spend money on the game. So I guess like now I'm spending more money on one game, which is fine because I'm invested in it. So personally, I expected to. I think this is perfectly fine for me. I mean, 6 season pass cards out of 12 cards in your deck sounds a bit crazy. I think I kind of know which deck you're talking about. But
yeah,
like,
it's a Zabu, Galacta Gwenpool, and then the 3 2/3s that like Sam Wilson, Kate Bishop, and of course Iron Patriot. It's like, yeah,
I mean, the funny thing is this is not like a common occurrence. It's not like in every month we will have a deck that has 6 season pass cards, right? So
No.
I think this is maybe just like a one-off scenario, you know. So at the end of the day, since this is like a one-off scenario, firstly you can't really exactly call it like pay to win, and also you really cannot call it pay to win because the cards will eventually be available to you anyway, right? Through the tokens and stuff like that. So it's more like this. We happen to have a deck now that's a bit more expensive because you need like the progressive number of season pass cards. But as long as this is not something I feel that is a constant occurrence, you know, like every meta deck is a bunch of very season pass cards and all that kind of thing.
There's a lot of Sam Wilson Iron Patriot right now.
I mean, that's the same thing as saying like Elsa back then, right?
Yeah.
Like, you gotta play Elsa to survive. it's fine, but okay, I don't want to keep going back to the whole 6 season pass cards thing because that's really just an outlier. But if your deck has like a few cards that need to be bought with the season pass, I feel like you just need to think in a way whereby you are expected to spend money to play a game. Obviously this can come off very wrong, but I hope you guys get my intention. It's not to say that you must spend money to enjoy yourself, but like you are playing a game and the game is supposed to be like the game needs to earn money from sales.
Yeah.
So it's
You,
expected to a certain
you
extent.
also can't call it pay to win because I lost 200 SP yesterday. So, I mean, pay to lose.
Maybe it's just a skill issue. No, I'm just kidding, but
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I've been Cam Best. He's been Lambie Series. He will be out next week. We have a special guest host. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. And Lambie, take us out.
all right, like, comment, and subscribe, everyone. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.